What's up, everybody? I've got a very special guest with us today. Who are you?
Eden.
Eden. And how old are you, Eden?
5.
5 years old. So you guys may remember about 1 year ago, I featured Eden's older brother, my son Elijah. And so now that Eden is 5, she wanted to jump on a video as well because she has started having lots of questions about what two things? What were the two things that you wanted to talk about?
Why things are so expensive and where banks get all of their money from.
All right, so we're going to talk about inflation, why things are so expensive, and where banks get all their money from. And you know what's crazy about those two questions?
What?
The answer is going to kind of be the same thing.
Okay.
All right?
All right.
Okay. All right, so let's start off talking about the banks. Does that sound like a good plan?
Yeah.
Okay, so you want to know about where banks get their money from. Is that because you know that that's where we keep our money? Is like that's where we get our money from?
Yeah.
Yeah? So if we get our money from the bank, then the question is, where does the bank get all the money from?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Well, there was a long time ago when people actually used to use gold and silver coins for money. Have I showed you some of my gold and silver coins?
No.
No, I've showed you my gold and silver coins.
You mean those ones?
Those are, if you guys see here, I can lean out of the way. Right back there. Those are props. So those are not real, but they look real, don't they?
Yeah.
They look like big gold bars. So a long time ago, when people used to spend money, that's what they would actually spend. They would use gold and silver coins and bars to buy things. So they would go to the grocery store and they would buy food. They would give them a gold coin. Is that what we do today?
No.
What do we do today when we buy something?
We use money?
Is it gold? Is it paper? Is it metal? Is it plastic?
No.
So how do we buy something? What do we do when we buy something today? Do we swipe a card?
Yeah.
Yeah, we swipe a card. So do we actually hand them anything?
No.
No. So what happens when we swipe the card? Do you know?
It takes some money away from the card.
Yeah, it takes some money away from where the card gets the money from. And does it give it to the store then?
Yeah.
Yeah. So a long time ago, they didn't have cards. They had actual coins. So if I wanted to buy some beef, I would give them a gold coin, and then they would give me the beef.
Oh.
Does that sound reasonable? That sound like a good plan?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, after a while, see what happens. Is there anybody who has the ability to make metal just magically by snapping their fingers?
No.
How do you make more metal? Where does metal come from?
Gold.
Gold is a type of metal. So where does it come from?
Where gold comes from?
Yeah, where does it come from? Where do they get more gold from?
Underground?
Underground. So somebody has to go dig it out of the ground, right?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay, so somebody has to go dig more gold out of the ground. Do you think that's easy or hard?
Hard.
It's very hard. So do you think that the total amount of gold goes up a lot really quickly? Or do you think there's kind of always the same amount of gold? If it's hard to go get more gold, does the total amount of gold stay the same?
No.
Does it go up a little bit or a lot?
A little bit.
A little bit, yeah. Okay, now, do people make more stuff or do people just keep the same amount of stuff? Like, are there more houses being built or are there always the same amount of houses?
More houses being built.
Yeah, what about cars? More cars being built or always the same amount of cars?
More cars being built.
More cars. What about like cell phones? Are there the same number of cell phones or do they keep on making more?
Keep on making more.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so we know that the amount of gold stayed about the same, but it went up a little bit, right?
Yeah.
We know that all the stuff keeps on growing. They keep on making more and more and more of it.
Yeah.
Right? Okay. So when you play the game of Monopoly, do you remember playing Monopoly?
Yeah.
Okay. When we play Monopoly, are there the same number of houses or properties on the board, or are there more and more and more properties?
More.
More properties, like the houses. Like, you know how you can buy like the zoo or the toy shop?
Yeah.
Do they keep on making more of those on the board, or does the board always have the same amount of them?
The same amount.
The same amount of them. That's right. So do you think that if they made a lot more, do you think that they would become cheaper, or do you think they'd become more expensive if they made more of them?
More expensive.
More expensive?
Yeah.
All right. So let me ask you this then. If you have 0 houses, you don't have a house, do you think you would want to spend a lot of money to get a house if you don't have anywhere to live?
No.
No? Wouldn't that be pretty important to find somewhere to live if you didn't have anywhere to live?
I would spend it on food.
Oh, you'd spend it on food?
Yeah.
Well, okay, you already have enough food. So next thing up on the list is a house. Would you spend most of your money on a house so you have somewhere to live? Yeah. What if you have 10 houses? Would you be willing to spend most of your money on another house?
No.
No, you already have 10 of them.
Yeah.
So if you're going to buy another house after you have 10 houses, you might only buy a house if it's really cheap, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So that shows you that the more of something there is, the cheaper it gets, right?
Right.
If they keep on making more and more of it, like water. Is there a lot of water in the world?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of water in the world. Is water expensive or cheap?
Cheap.
It's cheap. Yeah. So when there's something where there's a lot of it, it gets really cheap. So when people used gold for money, they kept on making more stuff, right?
What?
And so that meant the stuff got cheaper.
Oh.
And so what people did was they realized that gold coin, it just became too valuable. So instead of buying lunch, now they could use a gold coin to buy a horse.
Oh.
And so do you think that somebody, like if there was a bad guy, do you think they'd want to steal the gold coin from you?
Yeah.
Yeah, because it can buy a lot of stuff, right?
What?
So people started keeping their gold coins with somebody who would keep them safe. Do you know what those were called?
The bank.
The bank. Yeah, that's right. Okay, so if you have somebody who's keeping the gold safe for you, what do you need to do when you need to go buy something?
Get some money.
Yeah, you got to go back to the bank and say, give me my gold, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so how do they know what gold is yours? What if you go to the bank and you say, give me my gold? They're going to say, well, how much gold do I owe you, right?
What?
So what if you say, give me all your gold? Then they've got to have some way to try and figure out how much gold you actually own, right?
Yeah.
So do you have any ideas how they would do that?
Give half of it to them?
Well, how do they know how much is half?
They would loan.
Oh, they would loan it out?
Loan.
Well, yeah. Well, how would they learn? So let's say when you give them, how about this idea? When you give them the gold, they write on a piece of paper, all right, you've got 10 pieces of gold here. And then they give you that piece of paper. Would that be a good idea?
Yeah.
Yeah. So then when you go to get your gold, you say, hey, here's this paper that you gave me. It says I have 10 pieces, so give it to me, right?
What?
Would that be a good system?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So now we have people that have pieces of paper now instead of gold.
Yeah.
And so if you want to buy something, you could go get your gold, or I could take my piece of paper and I could tell you, let's say I want to buy a horse from you. Okay. I've got a piece of paper, and this piece of paper says that I can go to the bank to get my 10 pieces of gold. Or I can just give you the piece of paper, and now you can take my piece of paper and go get gold.
Yeah.
So would that be a normal thing for people to do then? Instead of going to get the gold to buy something, they just use the paper to buy something?
Yeah.
Yeah, because that new person could go get the gold if they wanted to, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so that was the original job of the banks. They just kept the gold safe for everybody, and people used their paper. They were called dollar bills. Have you seen paper dollar bills? You've seen like sometimes when we sell something or buy something, we use actual paper cash, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, the dollar bills. So a long time ago, you actually could take that to the bank and you could say, okay, give me my gold, and they would give you gold for it.
Ah.
Yeah. Now, guess what the banks started to do? They started to print more paper and give out more paper dollar bills.
Oh.
So if I gave my 10 pieces of gold to the bank and you gave 0 pieces of gold to the bank, how many pieces of gold does the bank have? I gave them 10, you gave them 0. How many do they have? They only have what I gave them, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so they have 10.
Yeah.
Okay. So what if the bank gives you a piece of paper that says you can go get 10 pieces of gold from them? Do you think that'd be good for you?
Yeah.
Yeah, because you didn't have to give them any gold, and now you have a piece of paper that says you can get 10 pieces of gold. So what happens then if you and me both at the same time go to the bank and try and get our 10 pieces of gold? Does the bank have it?
No.
No, they only have 10 pieces of gold, so they can't give you 10 and me 10, right?
Right.
Okay, so I'm going to say a big word here. That thing is called fractional reserve banking. Fractional reserve banking means that the bank tells people that they have more gold than they really do.
Oh.
How did they do that? Did they actually create more gold?
No.
Nope. They just wrote on a piece of paper, right?
What?
Okay. Do you think this is a good thing or a bad thing?
Good thing.
Good thing.
Good thing.
Okay. Well, let me ask you this. Was the bank telling the truth when they said that you could come get 10 pieces of gold from them? Were they telling you the truth?
No.
No. So if they don't tell the truth, what's that called?
Lying.
Lying. So is it a good thing or a bad thing?
Bad thing.
Bad thing. Because then if you and I go both try and get our gold, they don't have it.
Yeah.
So they lied to us. So banks started doing this. They started lying to people and giving out more pieces of paper when they didn't really have the gold for it. Now, let's go back to the game of Monopoly for a minute. Okay, we're playing the game of Monopoly. And in this game, do you think it would be good for you if the banker decided to give you just a ton more money?
Yeah.
Right, that'd be good for you. So let's say the banker gave you a ton more money, me a ton more money, and everybody just tons of extra money. Okay. When you go to then try and buy something from somebody, like a property, do you think they would be willing to sell it to you for $1?
No.
No, because they already have so much new money from the bank. So maybe they would sell it to you for $10, or maybe how about $100?
Yeah.
Okay. So if there's more money, did that make things more expensive?
Yes.
Yeah, because now because there's so much more money, people want more of that money to be able to sell something.
Yeah.
So when the banks started printing up more paper and lying about how much gold they had, do you think that made things more expensive in the same way as that Monopoly game?
Yeah.
Yeah, because the bank just kept on handing more money out to people. And so the banks lied about how much money they had. They printed way more paper, and that made things a lot more expensive.
Oh.
So do banks have any gold today?
Yes. No?
No, they don't have any gold. About 50 years ago, the president of the United States said, we are no longer going to have gold back up our dollars. And so paper dollars are just printed, and you can't take them to any bank or anywhere anymore to get gold with them. And so banks don't have gold. So if they don't have to have gold anymore, do they have anything stopping them from creating and printing more money?
No.
No, because if you go to the bank with $1, you can't get anything from them with it. So they can just create more money.
Yeah.
So they have the ability to continue to create more and more money.
But do banks still have money?
Well, when you give them money, what do they do with it? Do you know?
They make more money with it?
Yeah. So let's say you give them $1. How many dollars do you think that they can make?
$1?
They can make $10. All right, so now let's say they make those 10 new dollars. Where do those 10 new dollars go?
I don't know.
They go to somebody who borrows them.
Oh.
So when somebody borrows the money, they borrow some money and then they go and spend it. So then that money that they spend goes into somebody else's bank account, right?
What?
Okay. So when that new money then goes into somebody else's bank account, did the bank just get some more money?
Yeah.
Yeah. So what do they do with that new money that they just got?
They make more money.
They make more money with it. So that's called fractional reserve banking. And that just means banks can use money to make more and more and more money. And so when they do this, that just puts more and more money into people's bank accounts, and then people can spend that money. And what does that do to the price of things? Does that make things cheaper or more expensive?
Cheaper. More expensive.
More expensive. Because just like in the Monopoly game, remember? If the banker gives everybody a lot of extra money, did that make everything more expensive?
Yeah.
Yeah. So in real life, if the bank starts printing a lot of extra money, then that would make everything a lot more expensive.
Yeah.
Okay. So over the last 2 years, have things gotten more expensive or cheaper?
Cheaper.
So have you heard people talking about things getting cheaper? Like eggs or houses or cars?
Yeah.
Or have you heard people talking about inflation and things getting more expensive?
Both.
People have been talking more about things getting more expensive. So based on everything that we've talked about, if things have been getting a lot more expensive, what do you think the banks have been doing with their money?
Selling it to people that borrow it.
Yep. And have they been creating more of it or less of it?
More of it.
More of it. So banks just get to keep on creating more and more money by pressing buttons on a computer screen, letting people borrow it, and then people use that money to buy things, and it pushes prices up. So that's where banks get their money from, and that's why things are getting more expensive. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Now, there's also something called the Federal Reserve. Do you remember me talking about end the Fed?
Yeah.
Yep. We don't really, for this conversation, we don't really need to talk about the Fed, but the Federal Reserve is like a bank to other banks. And so it does the exact same thing as all the other banks. They create more money, but they create more money for the banks. And so that makes this whole system get even bigger. They can create a lot more money because they have the Fed helping them create more money. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Do you have any other questions?
No.
No?
No.
Do you want to try and summarize what you've learned today?
No.
How about like one sentence? You tell me where banks get money from. How about you tell them where banks get money from?
From other people?
When banks get money, what are they able to do with it? What do they do with it when you give the bank money?
They make more money out of it.
Yep, they make more money out of it. So where do the banks get more money?
From people that give them it.
Yep, people give them money and then they just use that to make even more money. They just make it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so how does inflation happen? Why do things keep on getting more expensive?
Because the bank keeps on giving them more and more money.
Yep, the banks keep on making more and more and more money. Good job. All right, well, thank you so much, and thank you all for watching. Why don't you tell everybody your name one more time?
Eden.
Eden. All right, and thanks so much for watching. We'll see you next time.